Welcome to the Art of Badassery, where I explore what it takes to live life on your own terms, break free from the status quo, and unleash your inner badass. Whether you're a rebel at heart or simply seeking inspiration to step outside your comfort zone, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Mahara Wayman, and each week I dive into the stories, insights, and strategies of those who have mastered the art of badassery and are living life to the fullest. They smile when no one is looking. This episode is brought to you by Empowered Collaboration, increasing empowerment through motivation, collaboration, communication, and connection. Hey, fierce women, ready to break free from fears and embrace the confidence you've always wanted? Join me, your badass coach, and fellow coach Jody Graham, for a transformative week at our Empower You retreat in the breathtaking Mexican Riviera from January 16th to 23rd, 2025. Our 7-day program is designed to help women overcome self-doubt and cultivate unshakable confidence. Rejuvenate with sunrise meditations, empowering workshops, and soulful conversations. Your spouse or BFF can enjoy the nearby PGA golf course while you focus on growth. Click the link in the show notes to learn more. We'll see you there. And now, back to the show. Welcome to the Art of Badassery, where I delve into the stories of extraordinary women who live authentically and inspire others. I'm your host, Mahara Wayman, and today my guest is Sharon Rose. Sharon was born in the early 70s on the East Coast and is the youngest of 4 in a Polish-American family. Drawn to nature from a young age, she pursued an undergraduate degree in women's studies, sociology, and cultural anthropology. Her career has been dedicated to supporting women living with domestic violence, coming from low-income situations, teens, and immigrant mothers. A woman of many talents, Sharon has explored midwifery, dance, herbology, and writing, earning numerous certifications. She's authored books, edited a parenting publication, and currently engages in creative writing for AI development. Her work focuses on helping women reclaim their authentic lives by connecting deeply with their bodies and their nervous systems. Now living in Portland, Oregon, on an urban farm with her partner and 3 boys, Sharon enjoys holistic cooking, hiking, and connecting with nature. Join us as we do a deep dive into her incredible journey and uncover her wisdom and her strength. Sharon, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Thank you, Mahara. I'm so blessed to be here with you.
Wow, we got lost a little bit, folks, before I hit the record button, just talking about stuff. And I'm like, stop, let's talk about that in the podcast. But before we jump into that particular line of inquiry, can you take us back to your upbringing and how being in that family and in that location may have affected your choices for school and other things?
Yes. So I was the youngest of 4 girls, and I recall just yearning to be like my sisters. You know, the youngest child always does. And when you're from the same gender, there's a whole nother layer and level of that. And it can also get really complicated. So I feel like I was born into one, researching women, you know, truly being like, what's going on there? And I want to be like them. And why do they seem really unhappy? And why are they potentially, you know, I would have conversations with my sisters so I would know their deeper hearts. And then to see them in the world was, you know, there was a split. And I too felt that, you know, in my own body as well. And so I think that really cultivated for me this understanding that what we present in the world is not always what's deeply happening inside of us. And as a child, I was pretty quiet. I was way more comfortable out in the woods with the trees on my own with nature and creatures. It was often pretty challenging for me. I felt an immense density and ache when I was around humans. And I recall, you know, people saying, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I would say, I just want to work with plants, animals, and children, because in all honesty, that was when I felt most authentic in myself. And otherwise, I was quite confused with who I was or if what I was feeling was me. And it was very challenging to kind of find that center in myself, because I was just feeling absorbing, everything from everybody and every environment. And then, as kind of a natural born badass, I wanted to transform it. When I could feel things were off and people were unhappy at that developmental stage of life, it was like, oh, they're unhappy, I want to make it better. And then I really couldn't. I tried for most of my life. I tried. And then, certainly now as I've gotten older, it's like, you can't change others, nor would you ever want to, so.
Thank you for painting that picture. I'm so curious that you used the words dense and ache. Can you describe that a little bit more? Because that's a fairly sophisticated description, I think. And I want to make sure that I understand and can really step into the shoes of young Sharon. So tell us more about this feeling of heaviness and denseness and aching, that there was some kind of separation that you were feeling.
Yes, so from a child perspective, it was so somatic, and as I've gotten older and done all the work I've done, to be able to peel those layers apart, then to go back, even right now as you're speaking, and just to remember, it was this like, I want whatever's in my body out. I just want it out, because it was so challenging to hold something so vast and deep and filled with grief, is I wouldn't have known it then. I guess sadness might have been the best, but also a feeling of being bad, of being wrong, of being never what I was supposed to be doing, that I should have been something other. And from a pretty young age, so I'm in my 50s now, and I think certainly, for example, eating disorders were definitely have been on the rise for a very, very long time. But I had bulimia when I was 8 and 9 years old, and nobody knew. Nobody knew. So again, it was this really interesting. Everyone was like, "Oh, Sharon's such a bright, happy being." It was like, oh my God, no, I wanted what was in me out, because it was too much. It was just too much for my system. And as I've gotten older, certainly those things that are so heavy and dense, almost always they're ancestral, almost always, you know what I mean? We come in very light, very porous, and then these things that, we were not designed at that stage and age of life to manage can really weigh us down, really weigh us down. So
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. And I'm wondering, do you recall at what age, or maybe just a certain experience, where you were able to finally articulate that heaviness? Because you're right. When we're young, we don't know. We just feel it, right? We just don't feel good. But was this something that came about in your studies when you were doing your undergraduate degree, or did it come out earlier than that, maybe as a teenager? So shed a little light on the awakening, shall we say?
I feel like, the awakening is a lifetime experience. And I certainly recall these, so I think what my journey was how do I find ways to get out of that density? So I was someone very early on in high school, I started studying meditation, loved it, because I could just whoosh, and I could go there fast, quick, and dissolve into it. I was someone who lived oneness, but not necessarily in a healthy way, because I wasn't yet established in my own identity. I was more like, please, anything but having to feel this. So, right away from high school, I was having these more out of body awakenings. So it would be natural that I would gravitate towards those kind of studies and experiences. And I was always studying meditation, these deep kind of beautiful places that were allowing my mind to touch upon beauty, true beauty and other dimensions. And I don't say that in like an intergalactic way. I say that in a sincere, the dimensions of the earth, for example, like that I could touch that and feel what river feels like, or I could touch tree, and I mean energetically, and I could go into the tree. And I'll never forget, so those were certainly beautiful awakenings of greater consciousness and a oneness. And my shamanic teacher, I recall a session where she said, Sharon, because she was going in with me, she's like, how are you going to handle that you can't see yourself separate? Because I think I had an image came up of a flower or something. She goes, how are you going to work with understanding you are not that flower? And I broke down crying, like, no, please, please don't make me do that. And I would say from that point, and in all honesty, I didn't physically feel it in my body, this deep individuation, until I birthed. It was during the pregnancy of my youngest son, and I was 40. And it was that pregnancy that opened me to, these higher consciousness places are gorgeous, but guess what? You got to come here. You got to come here into your body, into the earth, and be with this for who you are as a woman, not as some like floating, I am one with all, but no, this is Sharon. And guess what? Sharon's body is connected to the trees and is connected to her baby and is connected to higher consciousness in a way that I will remain here in life, dedicated in service to a deeper embodiment, especially of the female form, because it knows how to do that organically and instinctually. Not that it's easy, not that we, intellectually know how, but our body, when we have the right parameters, can go there and then harness that for us individually and then for the collective out of that.
Thank you for that explanation, or sharing your wisdom on that. And what I heard, and what I think many of our listeners will relate to, is the complexity of accepting both, right? Because I happen to believe that we are spiritual beings having a human existence. So there is a part of us that is completely connected, knows all, and is, very centered and grounded and aligned and loving, and comes from a place of true understanding and oneness. But then there's the other part that is living right here in the moment, and going through menopause and struggling with this and questioning that. And when we're on this journey, and this is me personally, I waver back and forth. I haven't found that easy place of full integration or understanding or acceptance. I love the idea, and I talk about it and I explore it, but I feel for me, it's a constant back and forth, right? So I really applaud that you're able to articulate that it took 40 and giving birth to sort of see that absolute crystal clarity of your being. So exciting. I want to go back to your childhood, though. Youngest of 4 girls. What did your older sisters, did they see you as anything different than them? And what was the relationship like as you continue to sort of grow up amidst a mirroring of what you saw in them? If that makes sense.
Yeah, so one of the key areas that I was naturally drawn to through my work was healing the wound of sisterhood, because I lived it. And so, with my sisters in the beginning, it was just like, oh, we're sisters, and all the things that come with that. And then it's again, nuanced, it's complicated, it's subtle. And being the youngest, there was comparison, there was, I don't want to quite say competition, but there was envy, undoubtedly in both ways. But until my sisters actually said to me, things around like, you're the youngest and you've got it the easiest, and mom and dad give you whatever you want, and me sitting there going, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's not my reality. And then realizing all the complications with that. And then in my family there is mental illness on both sides, so there was, the ripenings of that I got to witness in one of my sisters. That was very traumatizing for me, because she was actually sort of like an emotionally surrogate mother for me, because my mother had deep trauma when she was young. Her father literally unexpectedly dropped dead when she was 12 years old. So there was always for her this ache, of father, that hunger for father and protection and all those things. So it was challenging for her to be emotionally present. And so then I had this other sister who really showed up and saw me spiritually, as in a young age. And then, yeah, it was around early teens, 11, 12, 13, that she had a nervous breakdown. And suddenly I saw her turn from being, this protector of me to literally being my wanting to destroy me, and just like all those interesting things that get complicated because one, it's a mental game, but it's also a heart crucifixion, for lack of a better word. And I had, I was so close with another one of my sisters, and then due to our each of our own spiritual journeys, they were very, like you even just said, one was hers was so about elevation. She's a yogini, and then mine at that time was really going in deep into the feminine body of the earth. So we, to this day, we don't really talk anymore, and I never would have known that, would have come or would have happened. And it's not, I can feel we have devotion towards each other, but we don't hold that earthly sisterhood like we used to. So all these interactions with my sisters caused me to see the path of woman to woman, sister to sister, whether blood related or soul connected, heart connected, is so intricate. And it's one of our deepest platforms for coming home to the wholeness in ourselves and our own self-love and appreciation. Because women historically, certainly in my lifetime, all the influences of competition and the very imbalanced ways of working together and lack of collaboration has created, so much anxiety and people combating each other in really, really deep emotional and psychic ways. And so that takes delicacy to unwind that and realize each woman is unique. And there's that yearning when women come together, we just want to melt, and because we know how. And then to really be able to apply other principles to respect one another, our choices, our paths, and learn to be our own full-bodied woman, and to support each other in really healthy ways, really, really healthy ways.
Yeah, so juicy. And I'm wondering if there was a time when, let me rephrase this. Was there a time where you experienced any sort of guilt that your initial sisterhood with your sisters was changing and dismantling? Because we are raised in a society that says family is everything, right? You got to be best friends with your siblings. Come on, don't you talk to them every day? I feel that there's that pressure for many of us to have this lifelong close relationship with siblings. And I'm just curious if there was a time when you felt that pressure to keep it rather than allow it to grow to the place where it is today.
Yeah, I feel pretty teary about that one. I think forever there will be, insincerity and ache, like when you call forward the youngest daughter of four, there's an ache. I really envisioned that I would be, arm in arm with my sisters to the end. And even with this one sister who, we don't really speak anymore, she and I had talked about like creating a business together, and we even lived together for long stretches of time. And we would joke because we always like drew black cats to us. Like at one point there was the two of us living together and we had 3 black cats, and we're like, oh, we're gonna be the sister witches. And so there's this place of, oh my God, that is as far from my reality now. And certainly there was guilt of what could I have done differently, especially because I am more honest with myself now, and we aren't close. So there's that painful place of, ooh, to choose myself, over sisterhood. There's nothing easy about that. That is like throwing yourself on the fire. you're, on your own, like saying, yeah, burn me to the ground, because what I must be doing must not be okay, and it's taken a long time to be with that ache, to come to terms with that ache, to no longer judge that ache, to realize in my particular journey and situation, it was just a path that was required from my maturation. I had to choose, again, me, which, again, those words can be complicated. Even that is tricky to say, because is it that I'm choosing individual Sharon? No, I'm choosing what I just spoke of, what it means to be healthy in this particular life that I was given and created and am living, and how my body responds sincerely, authentically, to relationships with others based on who their body, what I mean, is doing, creating, and feeling. So yeah, it's so nuanced. And I don't know that the ache is so much softer now. The guilt is definitely has a different name and face. And then there's heartache. And then there's like, oh, I wonder, and I really let go. So what you said about, I would go to hold the family together at all costs until my father passed away. And when my father passed away, it was like something just moved through me and said, that role is done now. You don't have to be the one to hold the family together. And it was visceral and somatic. And then it took a couple of years to integrate that, and to not judge or feel guilty of putting down that, what I thought I needed to do for the rest of my life.
Okay, wow. Two things spring to mind that I'd like to explore further. First of all, I do want to explore somatics with you, because it's a term that not everybody may be familiar with. But before we do that, let's talk about the challenge of judgment. And as human beings, we are born into judgment, I think. And we spend a lifetime. I know I'm spending my lifetime navigating judgment for myself, for others. Only fairly recently in my life did I even really understand judgment. I really didn't. It was just a word. And I think, to be honest, as I was growing up, it was more of a biblical term, you know. But when I was studying and getting my certification as a mastery method coach, we studied judgment at length. And I remember, wow, my eyes were opened and I kind of gobsmacked, like, oh my God, I judge every day. I am constantly in judgment. My husband says that, I roll my eyes, I'm judging him. And it wasn't until I had the courage to question and actually engage in conversation from a place of truth that I realized I was judging. He's like, I didn't say that. And I'm like, but that's what you said. He's like, no, 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 that's what you heard. And I'm like, damn him. He's a smarty pants. And I'm the one studying coaching. Like, but it was so interesting. So talk to me about the experience of recognizing judgment in your life, and where you now place it, or where it stands in your life today.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you know anything about gene keys. It comes out of human design, but my literal life path is judgment, So when I originally, was working with my gene keys and getting all into it and being like, oh, and I saw that, I'm like, you've got to be kidding. That's so far from what my journey is. I don't judge. I'm one of the most kind, understanding, compassionate people out there. So bam, was that, like, talking about being gobsmacked. I'm like, ooh, I got to start looking at this. And, my husband and kids and family would be the first to go, are you so blind? And then I went, oh, and I remember that moment when I even heard in my voice, the way you behave with the outer world is the way you need to understand how to behave with those in your closest circle, meaning my husband and my kids. And I'm like, oh, ouch. And then as I started to take that back, again, that was this huge cycle of my life where it hurt so much to realize anything I was projecting on my most immediate inner circle was what I was carrying and not acknowledging in myself. So that's when the work on judgment really began in all earnest. And that was probably 10 years ago, where I wholeheartedly said, ooh, let me see, the judgments in myself, and may I keep unwinding those every day and learning to hold them for me so that I don't, because it's so uncomfortable when you realize, oh, I'm that hard on me. You're like, if I can be that hard on someone else, then that originates in me. And how am I going to just sit with this and do nothing with it? For sure. First, just feel it, and then feel how much it causes, one, an inner split with your own, self-compassion, self-care, self-kindness, and then the bravery it takes to start riding with those inner judgments, and when they show up, going, oh, okay, that's not how I want to be. That's not okay with me. How am I going to hold this differently so it can dissolve and it can soften? And then, one, I don't judge the judgment. Like, I'll always say that with women, don't judge your judgment, because then you're going to go to battle with it and like sit there with the, the armor, the hammer, everything, and be like, I got to beat you out of me. No, that's never going to be how judgment dissolves. It will be, look at me. Look at what's walked inside of your brain, your body. And then if we, pull the somatics in, look what this has literally done to your organs, to the way you feel things, to the way you, that lens you were talking about, where someone says something to you and you hear something so different because, again, of all this the inner landscape of what's been building over certainly your own lifetime, and then some, where it's a platform of removing you so far from what is actually standing right in front of you very clearly, but we can't see that because we're listening and believing all the backlog of stuff that's literally held in our cells and our tissues.
So good. And one of the things that comes up a lot in my work is, because you're right, often when we are awakened to the concept of judgment, we immediately go, that's it, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. And I'm bad for doing it. So I'm going to work really hard to not be judgmental. And what I say to my clients, and I try to say it to myself, is, hey, this is a great opportunity. This is neither good or bad unless you make it so. It's an opportunity to understand yourself better and make a choice, because that's what we're here for. I think our lives, we're here to learn and grow, and we have choices every step along the way. And recognizing judgments is the first thing. First, you got to be aware of it, and then accept it, and then take action. Once you decide where you want to, do you want to feel like this? Do you want to explore it some more? And if you don't want to feel like this, then what can you do to sort of safeguard the next time that situation comes up? The next time your daughter looks at you and flips you the bird, for example, right? Or the next time that your husband says, is that what you're wearing? Can I just share? That drives me crazy. No, I'm not wearing this. I'm actually wearing something else. Like, what do you mean? Is that what I'm wearing? Of course I'm wearing it. I'm wearing it. We're heading out the door. This is what I'm wearing. So I digress, but you know what I mean. Yes. Right? Little offhand comment.
Wholeheartedly.
Okay. So let's dive into the somatics now, because you gave a perfect segue that our judgments are reflected in our body, in our being. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So going back to that, symbology of literally having a backlog, so everything gets imprinted. Everything we think, everything we do, everything we speak, it gets imprinted on our cellular makeup, and then all of that represents, which is our physical being, our physical form. And so as we choose to, really come, and again, I always do this sort of gesture. For me, it's that feeling when you go in and you're often like literally going through the layers and feeling and going into the density. So this is that healthy experience of density versus the density of sadness, grief, and pain, which isn't unhealthy. But when you're going into the density of your being, where all this information has been stored, this is that relationship to your own somatic nature. And then, you begin to feel that, and bringing judgment back in, we can really hit the realm of our own somatic being when we stop judging our feelings and we just feel. that's like our somatic place. And then when we can, exist from that and have a relationship with how, I'm glancing out. I have a beautiful window at my desk over the backyard with the beautiful trees and the sky. And I often use nature. For me, it's one of the most pristine examples of somatics where people can get confused. It doesn't mean you're completely obliterating your intellect and your understanding. It means you let it be there, but in the background, so that the feeling nature, can come forward and inform you of how your particular system in this moment is experiencing life, and also giving you information from the past so that you can, like you said, make choice without the criticizing, self-abnegation and judgment, but from this place of, oh, I am this being on this planet in this moment, and this is the choice I'm going to make from this feeling nature. Not that the feeling nature needs to guide us, and it's really imperative when we're working with our somatic self to say, and I want you to have space in the equation, versus, like you said, the pushing things to the background or under the rug, when we can say, oh, I realize that little girl in me. For example, in my own personal journey, one of the biggest ones is I was often pushing myself in my work to be seen, to, be out there, social media, or published a book, was doing these things to put my work out there. My little girl, until recently, until I really welcomed her on board somatically, was in the background, terrified, crying, begging me without me hearing her, please, please don't do this. I'm not okay. I'm not ready. All the things, being so fearful of all the things that might happen. And I was so good at, again, pushing that aspect of the somatic information away, that I wasn't including that in that whole body, the rich choices that can come from honesty. Again, going back to being a badass, like, it's a badass for me to listen to her, and not to allow her to drive the show, but to realize that she has somatic information that, until I bring online with my present reality, I will be constantly doing contortions with what is real and authentic and true for me in my life.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And as you were talking, I couldn't help but think, and that's why I'm going to ask, what is the connection between recognizing our somatic experience and what people call intuition? Because I'm wondering if they get confused, if they're the same, if they can be separated. I feel most of my things are in my belly. If I feel happy, it's in my belly. If I feel anxious, it's in my belly. If I'm frightened or afraid, it's everything seems to be centered right here in my tummy. And that's also where I consciously say that my intuition comes from. It doesn't really, when I think about it, it's everything. Like, I just know. It's just a knowing. It's not from my belly. But I'm wondering, what is the connection, if any, between the two?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's gorgeous. So, such a beautiful question, and really insightful. And, I think in my own experience of working with others, and my personal journey, and again, these are not easy answers. These are us discovering our own unwinding through, till the moment we die. And there's not this easy, quick, like, oh, this is intuition and this is backlogged information that's causing your body to react in trauma and terror and all the other things it feels. And then, like you said, once you feel it, like, I can tell you, there's very specific circumstances when I went, oh, that's my knowing, that's my intuition. And then each time I acknowledge that and make a choice out of that, it keeps clarifying that relationship. Because, like you said, it's often for me too as well. It's this like fiery ignition that I go, oh, and that's also my trauma. Do you know what I mean? That fiery, hot, palpable place, which for me is often related to shame. So Sometimes it's, like this guiding me into a very whole bodied yes, and it's nuanced. And so as I get older and especially go through menopause, the deep fire initiation of menopause, it is showing me and clarifying for me the more that I listen and even take off the burden of I got to figure this out and I got to figure this out now. And that was me at 20, like I got to figure out how to be, fully enlightened, authentic, all of it now. And the more that I've let that go and said, oh, right, this is what we're all doing here, each in our own unique way and framework of coming to a deeper understanding of how our systems have translated our lives and whatever we call that energy of intuition, whether we call it, guidance from a higher power, a universal wisdom, our own knowing, like we are the only ones who can come forward and go, oh, that's what it is. And that's somatics. Like that's you feeling like, ooh, this is not just all my trauma being like, go there, don't go there, you need to do this or whatever. That's this moment of, oh, this is when everything in me is so aligned that this is my next right step. And it's so clear. And then when we have to make choices out of that, because I even just had it, for me, for example, money can be just a really deep platform always for me to work with. And I recently had something where, I set a price, someone was questioning me, etc. And I just could feel, because I had felt the accuracy of that price initially. I took time to feel it in my body. I took time to like do the whole processes I do to go, what's accurate and true and right for this service. And then when the other person questioned me, I was like, oh, feel free to explore around elsewhere. This is the accurate amount for my price and service. And I had zero, do you know what I mean, zero worry, zero shame, zero guilt, zero, like normally I'd be like, oh yeah, let me meet you part way. I'm so good at that. And that's actually not collaboration, that's caving into the traumatized me, who wanted so much to uplift others and value what they had to say. And by doing it, I was, decompressing myself and disvaluing myself. So again, once we feel that and we know exactly what it is, our system lets us know, we can continue to make those choices out of that feeling in those situations or relationships that are causing us to shake and quake a little bit and bring forward past, past doubt and fear and shame.
Oh, so good. As you were sharing that, I realized for me, two big differences. First of all, I can so relate to the money story. One of the first times that I shared when I first started working for myself, and I shared my program and my pricing with someone on a call, they burst out laughing and said, "You're joking me, right?" And it was a Zoom meeting. I gave like a complimentary session, and I was absolutely shattered, and I just froze. I had no idea how to, because I was just not coming from a place of authenticity and strength at all. And I'm like, but afterwards, I thanked her in my mind because it highlighted that I wasn't there yet. I wasn't believing. But anyway, that's a different story. What I did realize though just now was when things are, my intuition often shows up in creative endeavors. And there is such a lightness where I don't even have to think. The creativity it's just there. And all my life, I've just accepted it like, okay, I'll do that. Oh yeah, got it. And I realized that's my intuition. And there wasn't a visceral other than a lightness. So when I have a somatic reaction that is heavy, still to this day, it's pretty much something I have to look at. It's not the density of knowing, it's the density of, I'm guessing, shame and guilt. Mm-hmm. But when there's a lightness and it's an instant understanding or an idea, then I'm like, yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. Done. Yeah, so cool. So cool.
And I love the piece you're bringing in, which is there's no thought. Do you know what I mean? Like often we get in there and we're starting to do all this thinking, and then we come up with a decision, which like yours is a gorgeous example. Then our body cannot hold it when, do you know what I mean? Like when that person was like, are you kidding? And then the body just like, and goes back into that trauma response, the flight, fight, or freeze or fawn. And so here's that beautiful example of it's often when there is no thought. It's just the do. It's the yes. Yes, I am. You know what I mean? I am being drawn by this and I am it. It's like I am that choice. I am that creativity. And it's not like, wait, is Sharon that? Can Sharon do that? It's like, no, you just like melt into it and go.
It reminds me actually, I have two children, two girls. They're grown up now, but when they were little, and I think everyone can relate to this. You see children, whether they're your own or not, and they are so free and light. There's a time when they're very little, when they're like, I am the queen of the world. I am, and they live it and they breathe it and they see it like I am. They're so close to themselves, to their authenticity, and everything is just like, nope. They just reach out and grab life, and they step up into their growth and to their experience. And then, of course, that kind of whittles away as they get older and older. At least I saw it in my kids, and I remember it in my own being. But such good stuff. I would love for you to share with us, though, what are some things that you do consciously to help navigate yourself from that place of stuckness and density and generational trauma to a place of, to the other side where you're feeling lighter, whole, aligned, powerful? What are some things that you do to cultivate that and or navigate it?
Yeah, I think in my experience, it's ever changing as I grow, evolve, and change and go through the various seasons and cycles of my life. And when you were asking that question internally, I was going, and what is the consistent? Like, what can you touch that's always consistent? So, my internal conversations with myself, really acknowledging that I am the one where all the actions, thoughts, everything I have begins and ends with me. And so I'm going to have a really sound conversation when I'm feeling off center, off balance. Even yesterday I had begun this new job, and in the morning, I totally missed a ongoing meeting that I have. And so she had left a message for me. And so when I saw it, I went, oh my God. And I was just really off with everything. So first, I just put my hand on my heart and had the internal conversation with the one who actually had overlooked how I am stepping into something very new, very big, and I need a lot of space. And I didn't give it to myself. And so it was okay, time for inner conversation. Here you go. And often, I don't overly gravitate towards going like, which part of me am I conversing with now? I just put hand to the heart, breathe, and do, the deepest self-compassion and kindness I can, and make sure I literally dialogue. So it was exactly that. I was like, oh, sweetie, you really didn't realize how big of a change this is for you. And you didn't plan enough time. And next, let's talk with, for example, this woman who I have an ongoing meeting. Let's talk about changing the date. So I did all those things. So inner conversation, everything from love, compassion, and such deep self-acceptance. And then, the second constant for me is getting my body on the earth. And doing that often, for me, it's imperative to have it be just me, me and life, me and earth. And so I go even just out to my backyard most mornings and just stand there, just stand there barefoot and feel. It's the time in the day where I put aside all judgment and just feel how my body feels life. Because for me, when I'm on the earth on my own, it's so palpable to me. And then the other one would be creativity, making sure I'm making time for writing. I'm a writer. So writing, journaling, writing a poem, whenever I go into my perception that I'm stagnant, because, in reality, we can never be stagnant. It's our mind latching onto an idea that, oh God, we screwed up, we're dysfunctional, everything is frozen. Then I write, a poem either to that part or from that part. And that then is it reveals so much of like, oh, this part loves me so much and is doing it, all it can to grab my attention, to, help me get more mature and to reclaim, like you said, that beautiful aspect that you acknowledged in your daughters, that part in me that grabs life, but also lets life grab me. And where I go, yes, take me, take me, I'm yours.
So good. And I just want to highlight that compassionate self-forgiveness is one of the cornerstones, is the cornerstone of my work, is teaching my clients how to be compassionately loving of themselves, and to give ourselves permission to just accept and forgive things that we have believed about ourselves. And no joke, tough work. And the first time I heard it, I thought it was complete woo-woo, because I was like, you've mentioned it earlier, I'm a very happy person. I'm such a happy-go-lucky, fortunate, great family, great friends, great husband, great kids. Like, what the hell? I'm totally, I got my shit together. And then I went through this exercise and I was a sobbing mess. And I'm like, I don't even know where that came from. I don't even know where that came from. And, so anyway, yes, compassionate self-forgiveness. Love the visual of grounding to earth. And, there is, if this is new for any of you listeners, we are all made up of energy, and the earth is our energetic source, right? You just put your feet barefoot on the grass, you can, and just allow yourself to feel and to be one. And again, I know I sound like I'm out. It's a bit woo-woo for some of my listeners, maybe, but really try it, right? Just try it. Yeah, so beautiful tips on realigning yourself and just reminding yourself how much you matter. So, Sharon, thank you for sharing that with us today. Thank you for sharing your whole story. We haven't yet touched on what it is that you do today. Can you tell us more about the services that you offer and what it is you love most about the work that you're doing today?
Mm-hmm. I would be honored to. So I work with women and have been doing that for as long as I remember, probably since I was born. And, the form that it has taken me is showing up in a woman's life. She calls me in when she's in big transition and able to sense like I'm not being who I want to be, like that threshold moment of it literally often is because of a divorce or a change, like becoming a mama, having a baby, losing a job, wanting to change your job, going through menopause, and I'm moving much more because of my own personal experience and path to serving women through menopause, because it's the biggest threshold I have ever seen, where we are given by life this opportunity to, exactly what you said, let our life, like not the life that we have known and had given to us and has society's projected on us, and religion and education, et cetera, and our parents and our partners and family systems. But it's this moment, many moments for me. It's taken like 7+ years of this moment of life saying, this is your life. Say yes to it. And then all the things that come with that. They are physical, they are energetic, they are psychic. And so the way that I hold women, I do really deep transformative processes, and it's helping a woman, exactly what we've been speaking about today, really learn to cultivate her own inner relationship with herself, with her wholeness, with her authenticity, and be able to see and acknowledge and step into she is her own greatest healer, wise woman, all the things. She is her medicine woman for, this next stage of her life. and then working, in the nuances. So, I have many skill sets in my medicine bag, but I use hypnosis, guided imagery, meditation. I'm a shaman and a priestess, also a spiritual peace minister. So I'm tuning into what will serve that woman best, what her languaging is, what her story is, what her preference is, what her belief system is, and then cultivating, various experiences for her to engage, in a very deep way with herself and go through transformation. And that's my absolute most favorite part, like to like watch a woman come home to herself and really find like, oh, this, like you said, this queen, this gem, these riches are mine, are, hers for the taking. And then how she's going to very uniquely, not one size fits all, not like the 10-step model, but her way of stepping forward into life, with that very brave vulnerability of being so fiercely soft, so fiercely soft with herself first, and then with all of life. So it's just, there's no longer a battle, just no battle anymore.
What a beautiful vision. And Sharon, I just want to thank you for doing the work that you do. It is so needed. It's just so, so needed. And what I'm learning with the work that I do, which is slightly, I mean, it's along the same lines, but a little bit different. But what I'm learning, and I even learned this as I was raising my children, is there is this beautiful domino effect to kindness and to love. And we touch one person's heart, our client, we help one client, but do you know who they help and who those people help, and so on and so on and so on. I mean, that is how the world is going to heal itself, is one step at a time, one act of kindness at a time, one act of vulnerability or one act of courage. And I think it is incredibly courageous for women to recognize their power and to seek help to harness it. And that's what you and I are here for. And there's a whole tribe of women, lots of modalities, lots of different ages and ethnicities and training, all of that stuff. But if you want to feel more connected with yourself, ask the tough questions of yourself. You can handle it. If you need help in navigating those questions, reach out to a coach, a therapist, just reach out or start a conversation with your neighbor. The most beautiful thing I think we can do as human beings is recognize that we are community, and it's a beautiful thing to take that step to connection, whatever that looks like for you. Sharon, I want to thank you for being a guest on my show today. Literally, this has been an amazing conversation. Folks, check the show notes because I will put in there everything that you need to know about Sharon, how you can connect with her, and if she's got books that are still available for purchase, they will be listed in the show notes. My name is Mahara. This has been the Art of Badassery. Special shout out and thank you to our guest today, Sharon Ann Rose. And I'll see you guys next week on the Art of Badassery. Till then, keep doing your thing, peeps.
Thank you, Mahara.
Thanks for tuning in to another badass episode. Your support means the world to me. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, don't forget to like, share, and rate the episode on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback keeps the badassery flowing. And hey, if you're ready to unleash your inner badass and conquer whatever life throws your way, why not book a complimentary badass breakthrough session? Just click the link in the show notes to schedule your session, and let's kick some serious butt together. Until next time, stay fearless, stay fabulous, and of course, stay badass. This is Mahara signing off.